If you were to ask the average person on the street why the universe exists, you'd probably get a lot of different answers.
Oh, yeah, tons of them.
Right, like some might talk about the Big Bang or, biology, or maybe just random chance.
Yeah, the usual suspect.
But I want you to imagine just for a minute that you're walking through the cobblestone streets of Europe and you stumble upon this massive, awe-inspiring cathedral.
Oh, man. I love those old cathedrals.
They're incredible. So you walk inside and you look up at the soaring arches, the stained glass catching the sunlight, the intricate stonework that took generations to complete.
Yeah.
Now, if you were lucky enough to find the original architects sitting in one of the pews, you would probably walk up to them and ask one very specific
And it
question.
wouldn't be about the bricks.
Right. You wouldn't ask how they built it or, what kind of stone they used or how many workers it took. You would ask, why did you build this?
What was the point of all this effort?
Yeah, what was the highest aim, the overarching goal that made you draw up those blueprints in the first place? Well, welcome to Reform Thinking.
Glad to be here.
Today on the show, we are taking that same inquiry, but we are scaling it up infinitely. We are asking the creator of the universe why the cosmos exists.
Which is a huge question. Why is there something rather than nothing?
And more specifically, what was God's highest aim in creating the world? So for this deep dive, we are opening up a massive piece of Christian theology.
Jonathan Edwards' dissertation.
Yes, a dissertation concerning the end for which God created the world.
It is quite the title.
It really is. Our mission today is to look closely at this text and try to comprehend the highest aim God had in view during creation. And we're going to rely on reason and calm reflection.
It is a massive question, and setting it up with the architect is a really good way to frame it.
Thanks.
Because when we approach Jonathan Edwards, especially a text from the 1750s, it's really easy to anticipate this dense, impenetrable wall of 18th century philosophy.
Oh, for sure. It sounds intimidating.
Right. I mean, Edwards was writing during the Enlightenment. That was a time when human reason was really being elevated.
Yeah, people were starting to view God as a distant clockmaker.
Yes, someone who just wound up the universe and walked away. But what stands out here is his method. He tells us right at the beginning that he is avoiding tedious metaphysical arguments.
Which is a relief, honestly.
Huge relief. Instead, he appeals directly to the dictates of a reflective mind. He wants us to use calm, sedate reflection to follow his logic.
Just take it step by step.
Yeah. And as Protestant Christians who hold to Reformed theology, we come to this text with a shared framework. Those of us who adhere to the Westminster Confession know its famous opening lines.
Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever.
That's the one. What Edwards does in this dissertation is flip that perspective from the creature to the creator.
Oh, that's interesting.
He asks, what is God's chief end? What is the architect's primary goal? And he builds a foundation of rational thought that is incredibly satisfying to follow, provided we just, take our time and don't rush the logic.
Well, I have my copy of the text right here, and looking at the sheer volume of his arguments, I want to make sure we trace his logic organically.
Good idea.
So where does he even start? Because he doesn't begin with the physical creation of the earth or the stars.
Right, not at all. He starts before all of that.
Right, in eternity past.
Yes.
With what he calls the attributes of God.
Yes.
He brings up this idea that God possesses infinite might, boundless wisdom, perfect righteousness, and absolute goodness.
The core attributes.
But then he introduces a problem, or at least like a logical tension.
Right.
If the world had never been created, those attributes would have remained eternally dormant.
They would just sit there.
Yeah. His might wouldn't have produced any great effects. His wisdom wouldn't have had any objects to contrive or dispose of. His justice and goodness would have had no outlet.
So Edwards builds this case that if these capabilities exist, there is a natural necessity for them to be exercised.
But how does he justify that leap? Like, from simply having a capability to demanding its exercise?
He justifies it through a concept he calls sufficiency.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When Edwards uses the word sufficiency, he means a complete, perfect capability to accomplish a specific work.
Got it.
He argues that if a capability is excellent in itself, then the exercise of that capability is also excellent.
Okay, that tracks.
Think about it this way. A sufficiency for a work has no actual objective value in reality unless the work happens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if it's an excellent thing that there should be a capacity for a certain action, the value of that capacity is entirely tied to the action itself.
So God delights in his own capabilities.
Yes. He esteems his own infinite might and wisdom because they are objectively good. Therefore, it naturally follows that he delights in the actual exercise and expression of those capabilities.
So if he values his ability to contrive wisely, he must value the wise contrivance itself.
You got it. If he delights in his disposition to act justly, he must delight in righteous action. The exercise of the attribute is the logical manifestation of the attribute's excellence.
It moves from potential to actual.
Right. In that movement, the objective value of the attribute is fully realized.
Wait, I'm struggling with this a bit.
Okay, what's the hang up?
Well, if God is already perfect and he knows absolutely everything, why does he need to prove it?
I see what you mean.
It feels like a cosmic science experiment where he's just testing his own limits to see what he can pull off.
Right, like he's trying to impress himself.
Yeah. If he is completely self-sufficient, as Reformed theology insists, he already knew he had these abilities. He had a perfect idea of his own capabilities long before anything was created.
Sure.
Doesn't this imply he lacks something before creating us? Does the act of creation add something to God that he was missing?
That is probably the most natural objection to raise, and it cuts right to the heart of the theology.
I mean, it's a huge question.
It is, but you are absolutely right that God did not create the universe to discover his own abilities.
Okay.
He's not running experiments to test his own limits. Edwards is very clear that God knew himself and his perfections flawlessly long before any actual operations of them.
So it's not about self-discovery.
No. The act of creation does not add to God's essential nature or make him more divine. Rather, Edwards is arguing that the action itself holds intrinsic value.
The action is valuable on its own.
Yes. The action of wise contrivance, or the act of righteous disposal of things, is an objective good that God esteems. It is about the manifestation of excellence.
So if an attribute is good, its expression is good.
Correct. God values the expression not because it fills a void in him, but because the expression is a multiplication of the good that he is.
A multiplication, I like that.
It is an outward flowing of his nature. He creates because it is the nature of supreme goodness to be communicative and active, not static and hidden. The value is in the reality of the exercise.
I think I can visualize this.
Let's hear it.
Imagine someone who possesses the greatest singing voice in human history.
Okay.
Their vocal cords are physiologically flawless. They have perfect pitch, incredible breath control, and a resonance that could bring tears to your eyes.
A once-in-a-generation talent.
Right. Now imagine this person decides to sit in a completely silent, soundproof room for their entire life. They never sing a single note.
That would be tragic.
Exactly. I mean, yes, it would be. They know they have this incredible voice. They are fully aware of their capacity, but they keep their lips sealed.
So the capacity is there, but nothing happens.
Right. The capacity is excellent, no doubt, but the actual singing is what manifests that excellence.
Yeah.
The song itself has objective value. A silent room is objectively less beautiful than a room filled with that music.
Absolutely.
The singer doesn't sing to find out if they still have the voice. They sing because the song itself is a beautiful, valuable thing that deserves to exist. The act of singing brings the capability into reality.
The singer in the silent room highlights a physical and logical reality perfectly.
It makes it easier to grasp.
It does. The voice in the silent room is excellent potential, but the song brings that excellence into the realm of actuality, where it can be fully realized as an objective good.
Well, wait, the singer in the silent room poses a new problem, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, a song physically requires sound waves to bounce off something. Thematically, it requires an ear to hear it.
Ah, yes. You're tracking right with Edwards here.
This implies that God's creation isn't finished just by the act of making it. It physically and logically demands an observer.
Yes, it demands an audience. If someone sings an incredible song, it changes the environment. If the song echoes in an empty universe, it is certainly better than silence, but it remains incomplete.
Because no one is there to appreciate it.
Right, and this leads to Edwards' next logical leap. He argues that it is highly desirable that God's glorious perfections should be known and seen by beings other than himself.
Because if they aren't seen.
If his capabilities are exercised but totally hidden from any conscious observer, it is effectively the same as if they were never exercised at all.
That makes total sense. Like, if God flexes his might by creating 1 billion galaxies, but there is absolutely no one around to witness it, it feels like a wasted effort.
A beautiful painting in a pitch-black room.
Yeah. So Edwards introduces the concept of an audience. He says it is infinitely good in itself that God's glory should be known by a glorious society of created beings.
A glorious society. That's a great phrase.
And the logic he uses to get there is fascinating. He constructs this rigid hierarchy of existence.
Break that down for us.
He starts with the most basic premise imaginable. Existence is better than non-entity. Having something is better than having nothing.
Okay, level 1.
Right. From there, he argues that if any created existence is worthy to be, then knowledge is worthy to be. Knowledge is a higher form of existence than just inanimate matter.
So a conscious mind is objectively greater than a mindless rock floating in space.
Yeah, exactly. And if any knowledge is worthy, then the highest sort of knowledge, knowledge of God and his glory, is the most excellent kind of created existence.
It's the absolute pinnacle.
The absolute pinnacle of what a creature can possess.
The rigor of that hierarchy establishes that conscious awareness is not an afterthought in creation. It's a primary goal.
It's the whole point of the audience.
Right. When he talks about a glorious society of created beings, he is giving us a vision of the cosmos that is intensely relational.
It's not just rocks and stars.
No, he's suggesting that the universe is not a theater for God to act in isolation. It is a theater specifically designed with seating for an audience capable of comprehension.
I love that image.
And what is truly breathtaking here is how Edwards views the trajectory of this glorious society. He points out that there should be in them an increasing knowledge of God to all eternity.
Wait, increasing knowledge.
Yes, and this completely reframes how we think about the Christian afterlife.
How so?
Often people conceptualize eternity as a static state, a kind of eternal plateau of rest where nothing ever changes. You just arrive, and that's it.
Right, sitting on a cloud.
But Edwards envisions it as a continuous, escalating acquisition of the knowledge of God. Because God is infinite, a finite creature can never fully comprehend him.
So you never run out of things to learn.
Never. Therefore, eternity is an endless, joyful progression of discovering more and more of the divine nature. It is an active, dynamic state of increasing knowledge.
That dynamic view of eternity shatters the cartoonish idea of sitting on a cloud playing a harp forever.
It's way more exciting than that.
I think we see a shadow of this desire for an audience in our own human nature.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you mean? Well, we naturally want to share beautiful things.
Yes, we do.
When you're driving down the highway and you see a stunning, vibrant sunset, the sky is bleeding purple and orange, your first instinct is to turn to the passenger seat and say, "Look at that."
Or you pull out your phone, take a picture, and send it to a friend.
Right. Even if the picture is terrible, we have this innate sense that beauty is meant to be witnessed.
It feels almost tragic to witness something incredible entirely alone.
Yeah. If we, as flawed creatures, feel that impulse to share beauty, it makes perfect sense that God, who is the source of all beauty, would create beings specifically to witness his glory.
He makes the sunset, and then he makes the eyes to see it.
The instinct to point out the sunset is a perfect reflection of what Edwards is talking about. We are wired to recognize that an unobserved beauty is somehow missing its full realization.
When we say, "Look at that," we are acting out a tiny fraction of the cosmic design.
We are participating in the idea that knowledge of excellence is an objective good.
However, observing a sunset brings up an additional layer of nuance.
Oh, what's that?
Merely looking at the colors in the sky is not the complete experience.
I guess not.
Think about a camera. A camera lens can take in the light of the sunset, but a camera lens doesn't care. It has no emotional response. It just records data.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
For the experience to be complete, you have to actually appreciate it. You have to feel a sense of awe. Edwards recognizes this gap.
So it's not just about seeing.
No. He argues that as it is desirable for God's glory to be known, it is equally reasonable that it should be esteemed and delighted in, answering to its dignity.
He makes a very sharp distinction here between the mind and the heart.
Yes, he does.
Edwards talks about moral beauty living in the affections of the heart. He basically says that cold, hard facts don't make you a good person.
Right.
He writes that there is no more reason to esteem it a suitable thing, that there should be an idea in the understanding corresponding unto the glorious object, than that there should be a corresponding affection in the will.
That's a dense sentence, but it's brilliant.
In modern terms, knowing the facts about God's might and wisdom is insufficient. The understanding in the mind must trigger a corresponding affection in the will.
So knowledge must lead to love.
Right. If the perfection itself is excellent, the knowledge of it is excellent, but the esteem and love of it is also excellent. The creature cannot be a cold, calculating observer.
The creature must be a joyful participant. This is a massive theological distinction. Edwards is stating that moral beauty specifically consists in the disposition and affection of the heart.
The intellect alone falls short.
Exactly. Spot on. A demon, for example, can ace a theology exam.
That is a terrifying thought, but true.
The demonic realm has a very accurate intellectual understanding of God's capabilities. They know his might perfectly, but they do not love it. They tremble at it.
So they have the knowledge, but not the affection.
Therefore, mere knowledge does not fulfill the purpose of the glorious society. Edwards argues that since God loves his own excellence because it is objectively the highest good, it is entirely fitting that he loves having himself valued by his creation.
So he desires the affection of the will.
The active delight of the heart, because that is the only rational, appropriate response to infinite beauty. A cold, indifferent acknowledgement of God's glory would be a profound contradiction of truth. The heart must align with the mind.
Okay, I have to push back on this.
Bring it on.
Because when we talk about God wanting his creation to esteem and delight in him, it can sound really unsettling.
Unsettling how?
Doesn't this make God sound incredibly needy? Like a monarch demanding applause.
Ah, yes. The needy monarch objection.
We all know people who constantly need validation, who fish for compliments, and we view that as a sign of deep insecurity.
It's exhausting to be around those people.
It is. If a human king builds a massive monument to himself and commands everyone to stand around and tell him how great he is, we call that narcissism.
Howdy do.
So how do we reconcile this idea that God created the universe so that we would praise him without reducing him to the level of an insecure human ruler demanding a standing ovation?
That is probably the most common objection to this entire line of Reformed theology, and we have to address it head on.
Please do.
The answer lies in contrasting human insecurity with divine perfection. When a human monarch demands applause, they do so because they lack something.
They need the ego boost.
Yes, they are hungry for validation, they are insecure in their status, and they are using other people to fill a psychological void. Their demand for praise is fundamentally selfish because they are not the highest good in the universe.
They are flawed humans.
Flawed humans demanding to be treated as if they were flawless. But God is in a completely different category. God desires our delight, not because he is lacking, but because he is objectively the highest good.
So it's about reality.
Yes. When he demands our praise, he is demanding that we align ourselves with reality. If God were to point our affections toward anything other than himself, he would be pointing us away from the highest joy.
Which wouldn't be loving.
It would be an unloving act.
Yeah.
Our delight in him is the most accurate, right, and beautiful response to reality. It's in alignment with truth.
That makes a lot of sense.
C.S. Lewis actually touched on this brilliantly. He noted that praise is not just the expression of joy, but the consummation of it.
The consummation.
We praise what we enjoy because the delight is incomplete until it is expressed. God wants our praise because he wants our joy to be full.
That distinction between lacking something and being the highest good makes all the difference. It takes the narcissism argument and flips it completely.
It really does.
Let me offer an analogy to ground this concept of the mind versus the will.
I love your analogies. Let's hear it.
Think about a gourmet meal prepared by a world-class chef in a Michelin star restaurant.
Okay, I'm hungry already.
A food scientist could analyze that meal in a sterile laboratory. They could tell you the exact chemical composition of the sauce, the precise temperature the meat was cooked at to achieve the perfect Maillard reaction, and list every single molecule of flavor.
So they know everything about it.
That represents the idea in the understanding. They have perfect data about the meal. But actually sitting down at a rustic table, tasting the meal, closing your eyes, and savoring the complex flavors, that is the affection in the will.
The food scientist knows the meal, but the diner delights in it.
Right. Edwards is saying that God does not want a universe full of food scientists taking notes on his attributes. He wants a universe full of diners savoring the feast. God wants us to taste and see, not just calculate and observe.
The diner is experiencing the meal as it was intended to be experienced.
Yeah.
And what is critical to recognize here is that this intense joy, this savoring of the feast, must originate from somewhere.
It doesn't just come out of nowhere.
No, it isn't manufactured by the creature out of nothing. The creature doesn't generate this delight independently. It flows from a source.
So where does it come from?
Edwards looks at this entire system, the attributes, the audience, the delight, and traces it all back to a single overflowing origin. He introduces a breathtaking concept.
Say on me.
He says that God possesses an infinite fullness of all possible good, perfection, beauty, and happiness. This fullness is capable of communication, or what he calls emanation ad extra, which is a Latin term meaning an outward flowing.
Emanation ad extra.
Because God is an infinite fountain of good, it is a valuable thing in itself that this fountain should send forth abundant streams.
So it overflows.
He makes a point to say that such an emanation of good is, in some sense, a multiplication of it. The stream coming from the fountain is an increase or repetition of the good found in the fountain itself.
That phrase, emanation ad extra, feels like the crux of the whole dissertation.
It really is the anchor of his thought.
It completely annihilates the idea of the distant clockmaker God we talked about earlier.
It shatters it.
We often hear that old Deist analogy where God builds the universe like a pocket watch, winds it up, and then steps back to just watch it tick from a distance.
Which is such a cold view of creation.
It is. But Edwards is giving us a completely contrary vision. Creation is not a mechanical project. It is an overflow of divine joy. It is an active, continuous process of communication. He lists a trio of analogies that are so vivid. First, the infinite fountain of water sending out streams. Second, the sun shining forth beams of light. And third, the root and stalk of a tree diffusing sap and life to its buds, leaves, and fruits.
Those analogies are incredible.
Each of these analogies moves us further away from a cold, detached creator and closer to an organic, living relationship between God and the cosmos.
Those analogies are essential for grasping the strict theological truth Edwards establishes. Let's look closely at the tree analogy, for instance.
Okay, the root and the sap.
Edwards notes that the disposition in the root to diffuse sap is the reason the buds and leaves exist.
So the urge to give life creates the leaf.
Right. The communicative disposition in general, the urge of the divinity to flow out, was the actual trigger for creation. God didn't create the world and then decide to interact with it.
The flowing out was the point.
The very desire to communicate his goodness is what caused the world to be. The emanation itself was aimed at by him as a last end of the creation.
That is happening.
This means that the universe is tethered to God by its very nature. It exists because he is currently and continuously flowing outward. If we connect this tree analogy back to your daily reality, it changes everything.
How so?
The sap doesn't just create the leaf in the spring and then leave it alone. The sap sustains the leaf every single day. If the sap stops flowing, the leaf withers immediately.
That is a staggering thought.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it?
The leaf is completely dependent on the constant active flow from the root. It means that the joy you experience today, any moment of goodness or beauty, is sustained by that same original overflowing sap.
You are the leaf.
You are the leaf, and the sap is the infinite fullness of God's happiness. When you put all of these pieces together, you get a theological framework that is incredibly robust.
It all connects so perfectly.
God's glorious attributes, his might and wisdom, needed exercise so they wouldn't remain dormant.
Right?
That exercise needed to be seen and known by a glorious society of created beings, because hidden exercise is no exercise at all.
The audience.
That society needed to not just know, but actively delight in and esteem what they saw, responding with the affection of the will.
The heart responding to the truth.
And all of this was the direct result of an overflowing fountain of divine fullness, an emanation of God's own infinite good outward into the cosmos.
When you connect this massive theological concept directly to yourself, to the listener, it necessitates a shift in how you view your own existence.
Because it makes it so personal.
You are not a random cosmic accident. You are not just a collection of atoms floating through a cold, indifferent void.
No, not at all.
According to this reformed framework, you were created specifically to be a recipient of and a participant in the outward flow of God's infinite happiness and moral beauty.
You're meant to catch the light.
Your capacity to know, your capacity to love, your capacity to experience joy, these are all designed so that you can catch the beams of the sun. You are the audience of the glorious society, the diner savoring the feast, the leaf receiving the sap.
Your existence is tied directly to the highest aim of the Creator.
That's the core of it all.
I want to leave you with a final, lingering question to mull over long after this audio stops.
A good thing to chew on.
If the entire universe exists simply as an overflow of God's own joy and fullness, how did that alter the way you view the mundane, everyday joys in your own life?
The small things.
When you drink a good cup of coffee, when you hear a friend laugh, or when you feel the warmth of the sun on your face, is it possible that the smallest moment of pure happiness you feel tomorrow is actually a tiny direct beam from that original infinite sun?
What a thought.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep thinking critically, keep looking for the beauty in the design, and we will catch you next time on Reformed Thinking.